So, welcome back to another Half and Half Scarf football podcast with me, Nick, and my mate Dom. But today, for the second time in our evolution, we've got another guest, and a very special guest at that. Having had Yusuf on a couple of weeks ago, who was a Boro fan travelling from London to home and away games, we've gone a bit further afield today, and all will be revealed in a second. But what we're talking about today is supporting your club and rallying others to support your club when you live abroad. And as I say, we've got a very special guest. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you as usual to my mate Dom, but also introduce you to our special guest, Tommy Walker. We'll tell you a bit more about Tommy later. He's going to do the shirt thing that we always do on YouTube. I'm going to start with mine. I don't know if I like this shirt or not. I kind of like a white, crisp shirt. I'm not sure about the sort of deck chair things on the slide, on the shirt. From a few years ago, massive sponsor, Unibet. It fits me a bit like a sausage skin at the moment, so it must have shrunk in the wash. But we'll leave it at that. And I guess in honour of our international guest, Dom, you're wearing an international England shirt. Is that right?
I am, Nick. Yeah, I'm wearing the 2010 England shirt, which is a thing of absolute beauty. It's the best England shirt ever, bar none. Done in collaboration with the graphic designer Peter Saville, who did a lot of the New Order and Joy Division cover sleeves for their albums. It's just an exquisite thing, and I love it. Yeah,
Excellent.
I've forgotten how much I like it, so I dug it out this morning and put it on.
Well, we're on
I
episode
don't like
20.
yours, by the way, mate. I don't like yours at all.
Cheers. Well, we're on episode 22 and I'm running out of shirts. So I'll go back to rinse and repeat on that. But our special guest, I'll introduce Tommy properly. But Tommy, you've got a Boro shirt on. Tell us about that, the origins of that shirt you've got there with a massive, beautiful, simple MFC logo on it.
Yeah, you know what? It's my only, well, it's kind of my only Middlesbrough shirt I've got over here in Bangkok, Thailand. It was bought to me as a Christmas present, I think, from my mother a few years ago. I think it's sort of a kit to sort of remember. Was it under Jack Charlton? Maybe I don't know. It's maybe one of the kits from the 70s, or you know. Anyway, love it. It's very retro. You know, you can wear it on occasions. It's not necessarily a strip, but it's obviously red and it's got the Borough lion on there, MFC. So when I wear it, people have to have a little bit of a look and think, is he a Borough fan?
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like it. It's a kind of all occasions kit, that, Tommy, isn't it? The badge
Absolutely.
really stands out. So I suppose being where you are as well, that's ideal because it really highlights the MFC badge and the lion. So absolutely, I like that shirt.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's good.
Well, Tommy's almost giving it away, obviously. He's obviously based in Thailand. Let's introduce our guest properly, shall we? So, we've got a guy here today, Tommy Walker, who is a foreign reporter in Southeast Asia. He's a podcast host at Dateline Bangkok. He's a VP at Foreign Correspondents Club of Thailand. He's also a massive Boro fan. Very active on social media, very active on the ground. He's building a local growing Boro fan base across expats and locals in Southeast Asia. And he's currently involved in Middlesbrough supporters clubs in Thailand, Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Dubai, and China. Now, for those who are about to switch off thinking this is a Boro podcast, it's not. It's a podcast about passionate fans who live and work abroad, and how the hell do you maintain that passion and energy for the club from such a distance? So Yusuf was talking about coming from London to the Riverside 23 times a season a couple of weeks ago. Tommy's obviously based in Southeast Asia, but we'd like to explore how it all started, how it all worked, how does he get to watch the matches, match day experience and that kind of thing. So let's start first of all, Tommy, passionate Boro fan, but living in the Far East. Tell us a little bit about how that came about. You know, where you're obviously from the Teesside area, presumably, but where you're from, how did you get to the Far East? How long have you been out there? And what's the connection between doing that and doing the supporters club stuff that you're doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really long introduction. Yeah, God, I'm doing too much stuff. From Stockton-on-Tees, raised there, left Teesside about 13, 14 years ago. Went traveling for a little bit and then ended up finding work in Australia. So lived there for a bit and ended up traveling a bit more. I used to work in the travel industry as a travel writer, travel journal. And then I moved to Hong Kong and I'd always traveled a lot around Southeast Asia. So I lived in Hong Kong and then lived in Taiwan for a little bit, and now I'm in Thailand for the last 5 years. So I've been around the world a little bit. And yeah, love living in Bangkok. I'm here for professional reasons. With my work, I've moved from the travel industry to now into news, covering international news, foreign politics, things like that. But obviously, still have a love and desire to watch Middlesbrough as much as I can. And yeah, so really been a big Boro fan since, the mid-90s. Obviously come from a family who are massive Middlesbrough fans, for decades. My first ever Middlesbrough game was the Ravanelli hat-trick against Liverpool.
Wow.
So it's quite an introduction to Middlesbrough, and
Yeah.
obviously, that wasn't that season it was a sign of things to come, but obviously that was a bit of an unusual and golden time to be a Borough fan. So yeah, I've been mad for the Borough home and away. I've represented Middlesbrough on Soccer AM as fans of the week when that show was still going on Sky Sports. I'm still trying to do as much as I can. I do other podcasts talking about the Borough, and as you mentioned in the introduction, sort of founding and leading some of these expat and local Asia-based fan groups in Thailand and around the region. So, yeah, there's a lot. I do a lot about Middlesbrough, actually, more than I do in anything else, really. So, um, yeah, just love watching us, and just it's like a religion, isn't it, for football fans in England? We really, um,
Yeah, it is. It's an
we really
addiction and a religion, isn't it? Yeah,
it's an addiction and a religion, because when you speak to people from other, for example, Thailand, or people always say, like, what's your Premier League team? And it's like, well, in England it doesn't work like the UK, it doesn't work like that. We don't really, it's not like when we're supporters of a club, and
Yeah.
it's a
yeah,
it's a religious thing. It's in our blood. It's like, like going to church or going to mosque, whatever, it's like that. And it's not something you can just switch on and off as a hobby. You know what I mean? It's more than a hobby, isn't it? So
absolutely.
yeah, tried my best to follow the Borough, and obviously things are coming to a little bit fruition with these supporters groups that we're sort of trying to build and connect with the club.
Okay, well, we're going to explore that in a bit of detail, but we've got questions alternating between me and Dom. We've put a bit of structure in this, and for those who
We
listen to
have.
the podcast normally, they'll be quite surprised at that and shocked. But we've got a bit of structure, so we'll do Dom, Nick, and let's see where where we take you on your journey, Tommy. Okay, so Dom, over to you, mate.
Well, so where you left off, Tommy, there, I think the next question is quite a nice intro into that. So when you first went out there, or you settled in Thailand, what was your original plan for staying in touch with Borough games and results, etc.? And did you have easy
Mm.
access to the games over there? Or was it a challenge to find Borough matches to watch and engage with?
Well, there's a couple of times we could talk about that, because I first left Teesside to go travel in Southeast Asia, and that was more of a sort of a backpacking trip. I was mid-20s. It was supposed to be only for a short time. So at that point, my focus, wasn't really watching Middlesbrough games then. I did find a Thai construction worker wearing a Middlesbrough shirt from like the 2000 season. It was that one when we had Paul Ince and people like that in the team, and Noel Whelan. Wasn't a great Middlesbrough side, but it was solid. I think Southgate was playing for us then, his first season. Anyway, I remember seeing that at a construction worker, and I was thinking that was the only Middlesbrough link I could really remember at that time. When I moved back to Thailand, which was about 4 or 5 years ago, obviously, I've been following Borough for a while since then, and I'll have to go back a little bit without confusing everyone. But the time zone is ideal to watch Middlesbrough, because it's 6, 7 hours ahead, so you get to watch it 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Bangkok especially is a lot more modern than it was 10 years ago. There's a lot of sports bars, a lot of expats that are working there, so you can request them to put games on. And although Middlesbrough have been in the Championship for the best part of the last decade, you find a sports bar which has enough TVs, they're gonna put it on for you, really. So that's sort of helped, and obviously
Yeah.
that's helped create the community that we've tried to create in Thailand. So yeah, recently it's been easier than it probably was 10 years ago.
It's nice that they're accommodating, that you can go in and ask them to put it on the TV. I think that's really good, because that obviously encourages them. And if they see a fan base turning up, they're going to put it on for you and accommodate you more in the future, aren't they? Or know there's going to be a community of people starting to come in and watch that particular team. So they're probably there's going to be an appetite for them doing that for you, I suppose.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in Asia, Southeast Asia, people who haven't been over to this part of the world, there are pockets of Western bars, Irish bars, and sports bars and British bars. So, it just depends on the size. If you've got a sports bar or a sports pub that is got three TVs on a Saturday afternoon with the Premier League on, there's no chance you're going to get it on. But if they've got I mean, I've been speaking to one in Vietnam actually just this past weekend. It's an Irish bar. They have seven TVs, and they've said to me, all three of their locations, if Middlesbrough fans ask upon request, we'll put it on. So it's good, to find them places. It's not easy, you have to do a bit of research, but it's reassuring for sure. But it wasn't like this when I first left Teesside, so it's a lot easier to follow the club now.
Okay, well, following on from that, you mentioned about the social element of that. 10 o'clock on a night to watch the game is quite a social thing to do. Obviously, night games are middle of the night. Lots of people support their clubs from abroad. American expats. We know a couple who follow the podcast. They support like Crystal Palace and all that kind of thing. The time zone's always a challenge. It would be relatively easy just to get up, watch it or stay up, watch it on your telly in your own house, and then go to bed, whatever. What was the driver for building a community then? Because it's not just you watching it anymore. You're encouraging others to do so. You're negotiating with sports bars. What was the driver for doing that, Tommy?
I just think, I mean, the Thailand Middlesbrough Supporters Club, for example, we started it in 2023 when Michael Carrick was in charge, and we were looking like we were going to get promotion that first season. We were playing brilliant football, and none of us really knew each other. I didn't know anyone, and sort of ended up gathering with fellow Middlesbrough fans. And then obviously you see, well, actually there could be something here, because you think, well, there's a lot of expats who might be retired in Thailand, a lot of travelers or tourists that come over for the holidays, so you start to realize that actually maybe we could put something together a little bit more widespread here. So that's kind of what was my thinking with it. I was always really keen to connect expats, Boro fans watching the game, but also locals as well, and try and create new fans along the way. That's always been quite a bit of an interest because, certainly in places in Southeast Asia, most local fans, whether they're Thai or Malaysian or from Hong Kong, or they all support Man United or Liverpool, or the big clubs, So it's really fascinating. And I still get fascinated every time I ask this question about how they ended up, a local, for example, ended up supporting Middlesbrough. Like, what was the watershed moment where you're like, I'm going to follow this club from afar? Certainly in recent years when we've been in the championship, that's, so it's always interesting. So I always thought, well, why not connect people together and going on from that, I'm in Thailand, but I started to look at other groups, Middlesbrough fans who had been established well longer than the Thailand group had been. And I'd been in Hong Kong and I'd met a couple of Hong Konger fans over there. So it was just about trying to collate these groups together really and be under the same sort of umbrella where we could sort of share the passion, share the information, and connect with other Boro fans.
I mean, it's a tribal sport anyway, isn't it? And football's much better watched with mates than it is watching on your own. I go with my son and a few friends, Julie and various others, and Dom to games at home, but certainly away games. And occasionally when you can't get to an away game, you just watch it on on telly. It's like, oh God, it just feels so different, So I enjoy the idea of the tribalism of building, and I love the idea of converting, Premier League supporting, glory seeking Thai and Malaysian people into watching championship level football, because it's a better league of enjoyment and at times disaster as well. So yeah, Dom, sorry, I trampled all over where you're probably going with this, but go on.
Well, we've kind of answered the question I was going to ask, so I think I'd probably change it a little bit and move on to link into the next question I was going to ask, which was, you talk about the almost kind of converting locals, Tommy, or getting locals, or not, maybe it's not so much converting them, but engage with them to become Boro fans. So did you particularly target like local people, trying to get them involved and engaged in supporting Boro rather than, your stereotypical Premier League team, to build a local community and get them involved and engaged in Boro? Was that something deliberate that you did, or did it just evolve with people taking an interest in in what you were doing?
Yeah, probably the latter. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, we have to get so many fans to, there's a minority of local fans. And like I said, I used to live in Hong Kong, and, I met the Hong Kong Supporters Club there in 2018. And when I met them in this bar in Wan Chai, it's called 109 Bar, where they still show Middlesbrough games today. These two lads, Ting and CK. CK is actually in Teesside now. He was training with the Middlesbrough squad the other day, unbelievably. I mean, you'll see more of that coming soon. But them two brought this Middlesbrough Hong Kong flag, and we watched the game. I can't remember what the game was, but it was just surreal. And that was like, well, so for me, it's still a massive interest for that these people, would support Middlesbrough. So it wasn't deliberate in terms of sort of, oh, we have to get so many more. There's already a little bit of a minority there. My main thing was really just to connect Borough fans, whether they're local from Teesside or
Yeah,
England or the UK or from overseas. And you know, as you mentioned, like watching the games in a group is so much more fun, or even just talking about it. On now we've got WhatsApp groups and chats and things like that, and there's even online watch parties now, which is a common thing. Certainly over in this part of the world, where if you haven't got time to go out, to a venue, or it's a late kickoff. As Nick said, like during the week, there's online watch parties where everyone goes on a particular link and watches it together and comments and things like that. So, it's basically a community-based sort of thing really that we all want to watch and comment on, and it just takes us away from our usual everyday life for 90 minutes or so.
yeah. Have you found though, Tommy, that if you've been engaging with expats or people who are naturally Borough fans, have you found a local interest and they become engaged because of following what you're doing? Say you're meeting in a bar or something, is that generated interest locally? So you've kind of boosted the numbers because people are engaging with you as supporters of Middlesbrough and want to get involved. Is that happened? Do you think?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like, if you think of like Teesside, people might be out here for different reasons. Whether it's work, retired, maybe people are traveling through. So obviously, watching Middlesbrough is the link. It's the bridge for
Yeah,
people to connect. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So, I don't know how big the Borough fans are individually, because I've met a lot of Borough fans from Teesside passing through. Some I've kept in touch with, some I haven't. It's just the way it is. The Borough fans that I see regularly here. They're big Borough fans, you know what I mean? Like they've been living overseas longer than me actually, and followed them around the world. So yeah, but I'd imagine so. If you've got a group that's meeting up that's full of Teessiders
yeah.
and watching the game, it's a social thing as well. And even if
Absolutely.
you
Yeah,
if
it
you
is.
if you're new to the country and you just want to feel a little bit more settled, you've got a space. And there's a couple of spaces in Thailand that you can do this, not just our group. That you can go and watch the game, and maybe meet new friends or just feel comfortable for a night, and obviously,
Yeah.
being in a new country, it's not always easy, it feels a bit overwhelming sometimes. So hopefully that helps people as well. But, the main thing really is just to get Borough fans connected overseas, because we're the minority here.
Well, I was in Azerbaijan for work a while ago, through for 2022, and it was when the
Mm.
World Cup was on in Qatar, and I was in a bar watching England play Iran. I think it won 6-1 in the end, and there was a guy there, English guy, works out there, runs a construction company called Michael Hammond. Just happens to be a Mackem. But he was a really nice guy. We had something in common: North East football fans, England football fans. The bar was full of, I would say, Arabic kind of people who were cheering for Iran rather than England, and we beat them 6-1. The commonality was we are supporting England in a bar and having a conversation. I'd class him now as a really good, sort of football mate, really, and that's how it transpires, doesn't it? The thing in common is that you're in the same place doing the same thing. The fact that he's a Sunderland fan and I'm a Borough fan, we have our little disagreements occasionally, but we're very commonly sending message on WhatsApp and that kind of stuff, that kind of thing. I'm keen to exploit what might be a typical match day for you. 10 o'clock kickoffs are great, right? But midweek games and evening kickoffs and all that, probably not so much. What's your routine and the routine of the supporters clubs in? I'm assuming Thailand or maybe one of the other locations. It is, how does a Saturday 3 o'clock England kickoff work, and then how does a midweek? Because that's like what, 2, 3 in the morning kind of thing. How do they work for you on a local level, Tommy, and the other supporters?
Yeah, interesting. I mean, the Sat obviously we're playing tomorrow. We're playing Saturdays. It's 10 o'clock now, but the clocks have just they've just changed, haven't they? So it's normally 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock. Yeah, I mean, for Bangkok, we just meet in one bar. Some lads will go in early for the early game. So the early game over here would be like 6 o'clock, 6:30,
Mm.
whatever it is. There's a 12:30 kickoff over there. Some lads will go in for that. I'm normally sort of there last minute because I'm probably doing something else, working or whatever I have to do. And yeah, we just obviously we book a table, we speak to the guys, and they have us reserved. And actually, in the pub, there'll be other fans of other clubs. Some will be from the UK or England, and there'll be others who are just sort of more local to the area, really. So that's it. We try to do it as much as we can. In recent weeks, a lot of us have been away for different reasons. I was in Vietnam, and before that, I was I was working as well, away from Bangkok. So it's just as and when we can, really. Other supporters groups might meet up more.
Mm.
And other supporters groups that, might meet up more online or sort of more on special occasions. It's cultural as well. So, for example, like in Malaysia and Indonesia, they're not big drinkers, the fans. So if they go out, they probably go out for food. And, it just, and the venues, there's not as many venues, sports venues in the cities there than there is in Bangkok or in Dubai, where there's a big expat contingent, so it really depends. On the group. From looking at other groups in the region, and certainly over Australia and New Zealand, they've got some big communities. And I've joined the Australia Middlesbrough Supporters Club for the promotion when we got promoted, when we drew 1-1 with Brighton, and that was mental. I was living in Australia at the time, and that was a big, big, dance floor full of Middlesbrough fans. But I'm not sure if they do that every week. You know what I mean? So it really just depends on everyone's everyone's schedule and everyone's sort of availability, but if you've got a couple of dozen events on a year, where you can watch the game, I mean, it's better than nothing, isn't it? And nowadays you've got online parties and communities as well. So yeah, it just depends. Midweek, it depends again. Most people, if it's a 2 a.m. kickoff, I'm fortunate to most of the time work under my own schedule, working in news. Sometimes that will be changed, of course, if I've got to get up in the morning and do a story, but I'll try and stay up. But for example, like we played Sheffield Wednesday the other week, and I'd been working, and I just got back from a border area. I was actually covering some conflict that's been happening in the country between Cambodia, and I was exhausted. And I managed to stay up to 1 a.m. and the game was about 1:45, and I woke up with like 5 minutes to go. So it just depends on your schedule. I try my best, but the Saturdays are great. It gives you somewhere to be, and it gives you a little bit of the match day experience, a purpose, like we do in England, when you're watching the games.
Couple of things to observe from that. One is I'm not shocked at all that some Boro fans go for a drink early. I don't know. I don't know if anyone else is shocked by that statement. And the other
No.
one, and the other one is in terms of the Sheffield Wednesday game. You're probably better off having a kit, mate. You didn't miss anything at all. It was a shocking game of football. So nothing lost there. So okay, no worries. Dom.
Um, I'm just struck by the fact that you're actively involved in so many supporters groups, Tommy. So you've got Hong Kong, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Dubai, China. I mean, how did you go about setting them up? What was involved in setting all those up? Was it a complex process? Was it simpler than it kind of looks on paper? Is it all done by you remotely? Do you have help with that? How that seems like quite a big task running all those groups.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I have to correct you there a little bit. So basically, I founded the Thailand Borough
Oh, okay.
Middlesbrough Supporters Club, and I founded the Asia one. But all of them other groups you mentioned, they've already been founded. They've already been
Oh, right.
created
Okay.
by other people. What
Oh,
I've done is connect us all together
right.
under the same Asia umbrella, and because I've got experience in doing it, and obviously probably a little bit more enthusiastic at doing this Asia community. I've obviously helped them. So I do administrate some of the Facebook groups, and I do, help them
Yeah.
structure it and things like that. So, them groups have very much been established. I mean, for example, the Singapore one was created by a guy called Arif Ahmed, and he created it in 2004, the year that Middlesbrough won the Carling Cup.
Yeah.
And he in 2006, Middlesbrough, Steve Gibson, the late Gordon McQueen, the late Keith Lamb, Craig Hignett, Curtis Fleming, Neil Maddison, they all went over to Singapore. And I think they might have played in a charity football game. And Arif's got photos with them all. So he's been going for 21 years, you know what I mean? And I think he's had, the odd meet up on depending on big games, So
Yeah.
there's things like that. Haifez, who runs the Malaysia one, he's went over to Teesside 3 times in the last 20 years, and he's got photos with some of the staff, and he's been to games. I think one was away to Bournemouth. He showed me a photo of, but anyway, so a lot of these clubs have been established. I've just in this year we've all just came together a little bit, and there's likely going to be other ones as well within Asia that are going to come to work. We're going to work with, and basically just give us sort of like that give the club basically that one point
Yeah.
contact, if you like, where, if any of these people want to come to Teesside and get tickets, or if they're coming for a special trip, we've got that direct contact with the club to help them do it. And honestly, I love seeing overseas fans, getting interviewed by the club's media at the Riverside and watching the game and flying thousands of miles to watch Middlesbrough. It's a brilliant thing, because there's not many tourists in Teesside. And there's students and international students, but there's not many tourists. So to get someone with that passion to go over, I think it's brilliant, and it's brilliant for the club as well because it's soft power. And that's a great brand. Soft power is like to expose Middlesbrough in nicer ways without hard promoting them. So, yeah, that's my involvement. I'm just helping them out, but really, everyone runs their own community, and we're just sort of under this new Asia Middlesbrough Supporters Club community.
Yeah.
As we record this, I'm obviously going out a couple of weeks down the line, but you mentioned the guy from Hong Kong. He was at the game against Ipswich a couple of weeks ago, and he went to the
Yeah.
Sheffield Wednesday game and the Wrexham home game, and he was interviewed on the pitch at the Ipswich game, in front of a full house virtually, under the lights, on Sky. It's incredible. It's fantastic. This guy, he comes over, I think, once a year. And like you say, he's meeting the team. He's going to Rockcliffe, where the training facilities are. And he's going to spread the word of Middlesbrough as a club that he loves, as a community kind of base. And going back to this podcast, not just being about the borough, I would hope that other people around the world are getting inspired by what you're doing in sort of Asia for a championship club, so whether you're supporting a championship club, a glory-seeking Premier League team, or whatever it might be, community is what it's about, isn't it? And you seem to have harnessed that really, really well. I was going to ask you a question about kind of whether or not the clubs were all independent, and you've answered that yes, they are, but you're umbrellaing them together, aren't you, and making them more powerful. What sort of numbers are we talking about across Asia, do you reckon? I mean, you probably haven't got exact figures, but what are we talking about in numbers, Tommy?
Well, I have got some idea of the numbers. The thing is, this is what I'm trying to basically sort of figure out really moving forward. Because in terms of like Facebook members and followers, these groups have probably got around 800, right? And that doesn't mean every single one is a Middlesbrough fan. There might be some people who are curious, or obviously there's a lot of people from Teesside who are not living in Asia. There's people who have joined because they're curious. So it's about 800 in total of the Facebook groups. The China one is interesting because in China they use completely different social media to us. And Aki Yang, she is the founder of the China group. About 10 years ago, she did it, and now they've got 10,000 followers of her page on Weibo, which is a social media we can't even get, but there's obviously an interest there.
Yeah.
So it just shows you that even though we are championship club, a small town in Europe, as we used to sing in the European years, there are overseas fans who have likely been connected because of Middlesbrough's success in the mid-90s and the mid-2000s, who are following us. And although we might think, oh, Middlesbrough again, typical Boro fan, and oh, it's hard to be a Boro fan, there are fans that actually willingly want to watch Middlesbrough, and have obviously built up their own communities. So I think, yeah, they're all independent, and it's just about sort of harnessing everyone to come together. Really, just so if they ever have a chance to go to Middlesbrough, Teesside, it's easier for them, and that's part of what I wanted to do it for. Really, was just to sort of get everyone together and give people the opportunity to connect and socially, but also in the future if they want to go and visit the club, So it's a great thing for the club as well, if I may say so myself, because they're obviously getting, Borough exposure in this part of the world. Football is massive, certainly in Southeast Asia, like it's massive. You can play football here every day of the week. So it's just a good thing to have, and like I said, there's more followers and fans of Middlesbrough than one would think. So outside of the country, outside of the UK.
Um, Linking on to that, and I think a nice segue into this is most of these supporter groups have been officially recognised by the club as well, which is a great achievement. But what does that involve in terms of dialogue with the club, and how often do you have dialogue with the club, and what benefits does it give you? I would have thought that the obvious benefit being affiliated with the club is tickets and access to the club. But is there anything else, Tommy, that is a benefit of actually being recognised by the club?
It's a good question, because it's actually what we're working on at the moment. So it's kind of we're still waiting to sort of discuss what's going to be the give and take here. Do you know what I mean? And we're on the MFC website. Not all of the groups are, just a few of them at the moment. The ones that have sort of been well established, like you said, the Hong Kong guys have been over. Right, one's there right now. They've been over last year, so they've really had that exposure. That the local media were really all over it last year. Singapore, obviously, they've met Steve Gibson, our chairman, a legend for chairman, and so they've definitely got really strong past relations with the club. So, and then obviously Thailand is something that I've helped run and found. So, yeah, right now we're just ironing out the details about what it means moving forward. It's amazing that the club's been open to recognizing us, certainly, and it benefits them as well, let's be honest, because, they have Asia communities, it shows a more diverse international fan base.
Yeah.
We have to think about like how all these clubs like Man United get all the money. They have a massive fan base in places like Asia, so it's all fun and games and beneficial as well. So yeah, it's great to be recognized, but right now in terms of what we're going to get out of it, look, I'm sure that tickets would be no problem if some of these fans come over. They ain't going to allow them to fly thousands of miles and not get tickets to a game. You know what I mean? It's like, so I'd imagine that would be the case. It's probably different for local supporters groups, where their concerns are probably more match day experiences and maybe availability for away games, things like that. For us, obviously, we live over here, so we're not going to be asking for tickets all the time, because we're not there, So it's probably going to be more things, in terms of what they can do for us when we get back, or maybe merchandise. I don't know. We're still ironing it out, but I'm sure it's going to be a mutually beneficial agreement once we get it all sorted out.
I would agree. I'm sure it will be. Yeah, good luck with that. I hope it all works out on that one.
Well, Dom and I and my son Rob, we go to Dortmund once a season, because we just as a kind of a bucket list it originally was, but now it's become a bit of a kind of an annual trip. And there's a Boro BVB, which is obviously what Dortmund's sort of initials are, a Boro BVB fan club, which is official. And we, as Boro fan season ticket holders, when we were looking to go last time, it was the first time we sort of engaged with the BVB group. They got us match day tickets at Dortmund at face value, €22 or €23, rather than buying them through a reseller ticket site and all that kind of thing. And they're officially recognised by the MFC, foundation and Boro and all that kind of thing. So I wish you luck with that, because it can only bring benefits, can't it? It's good for the promotion, it's good for the brand, it's good for, like you say, just if Boro ever did a pre-season tour somewhere in Southeast Asia, they've already got a bit of a following there to pick up on, and why wouldn't they harness into that? And you seem like the kind of guy who just gets shit done, Tommy, don't you? You look like the kind of guy who just gets. Would that be fair?
Done, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so, mate. I mean, like I said, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say I work for myself, but I don't have to clock in every day. I work as and when I'm needed, and then that probably gives me a little bit more time to focus on other projects and things like that. But yeah, just continue every day, just keep going. whether the day is good or bad, the next day is a new day. So you can keep going and sort of focus on stuff like this. And obviously just being a massive Boro fan and it motivates you to do this sort of thing and spread the word about the club. And yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there'll be you know, benefits for the supporters who are part of the group as well. And it's also nice as well to be part of something, like be part of a community, certainly in a foreign country, like as much as you might be the bravest person in the world and well traveled, it's nice to be part of a community that you can rely on a little bit. And, so I think it all plays well. And yeah, just moving along and hopefully I haven't took on too much because it feels like a lot of work at the moment, but it's fine. It's fun. So I'll keep going.
And I
And that
think that leads me into my final question, which I think is a nice one, which and Nick emphasizes at the top of the top of the pod, where it's you happen to be a passionate Borough fan, and we both are, so it could feel like a Borough podcast, but we're trying to emphasize that it's not really about the Borough. It's about if you're a fan of another club living and working abroad, what advice would you give them, Tommy, in terms of doing something similar to what you've done? If you're
Mm.
feeling a bit lonely abroad and you want to connect and engage and use football as that tool for doing so, what advice would you give to people trying to do the same thing that you've tried to do?
Yeah, well, I mean, if they want to join a club, particularly like a football club, I mean, they obviously can have a look now. We've got the power of social media
Yeah,
and the internet where we can see if these community clubs have already been created by someone else. They can obviously look at that, but also they can be a little bit entrepreneurial and productive and do things themselves. I mean, for example, I've been contacted by a couple of expats in the Middle East who've said, "We'd love to do one for this place," and I said, "Well, set it up, find a venue, find the fans, create a group. You can be part of it. Like it's as easy as that, Like we want to connect, and the club like that. I've told that to the club, that people are reaching out and they want to create something for themselves as well. So, I think just having that initiative is important, but it's nice to have that initial recognition that at least someone's like, oh, there's an Asia group, maybe we can be part of that. And then they automatically exposes them to a wider audience
yeah,
of Borough fans. Not obviously Middle East, it's still 6 hours away from where we are in Bangkok, but it's still overseas, you're still within the Asia region. So yeah, absolutely take the initiative or try and join other communities as well. Football's a big thing, like I said, in Southeast Asia. I'm part of a football team here. I've got obviously the Thailand Middlesbrough Supporters Club. We've got the Asia Group, the community club. So it's there's plenty of places to connect with other expats and and other football fans, who might want to join in. And I mean, I've had friends of mine who are not Middlesbrough fans, but they sometimes now and again want to join the community and come out for beers because they want to be part of that, and it's always a bit of banter, you know what I mean? Like, depending on what club they support and things like that. So I think it's a great way to connect
I was going to quickly ask you that,
other
Tommy. Do you
fans.
find as well that what you're doing and how you connect and how you get together, you find you get together with other football communities, other football club communities, because you perhaps frequent the same venues and go to the same places? Does that happen? Do you find that you're getting engaged with more expat football club communities doing what you're doing, or is that not a thing?
You know what? It's an interesting thing you mentioned because there's a couple of ways to know about this. I mean, for example, we were watching Middlesbrough Preston a few weeks ago, and in the sports bar that we are, there's a couple of big fan groups that go there, Leeds and Rangers, and there's one of the back rooms is pretty much designated for them on match days, and I think the Preston game was an early kickoff, so obviously knowing the lads in there, they'd give it to us, and the Rangers lads came in towards the end and stuff like that, and it was all right. It was good banter. Do you know what I mean? I mean, they were
Yeah,
going through a bad time at the time with Russell Martin, but yeah, it's all right. But at the same time, a couple of seasons ago, Middlesbrough played Leeds in the Championship, and we lost 3-2. But we took the lead in the game. I think Lath scored, and I was in that same space in the bar. I was the only Middlesbrough fan, and they were all Leeds fans, and I remember us scoring. And it was so surreal experience because if that was in Leeds, I might be getting my head kicked in at that point. You know what I mean? Because of, so But you know, at that point, and my mate, is actually American, but he's a big footballer, you know, soccer player. But no, he was just like, oh, you know, he was kind of helping cheering for me. But it was surreal because, yeah, I was at the back of the room and all these fans were groaning, you know. But at the same time, leading on from that, animosity is very, it's not as common as it would be if you're in your home country, you
Yeah,
know, if you went into a Leeds pub or something like that, you know, you know, you'd be lucky to get out of there without one or two
yeah,
words being said
I
to you, you know
agree.
what I mean?
Yeah,
So I think opposing fans, you know, no one has that, certainly in Thailand, and because Thailand's a place where a lot of people come on holiday. It's very humbling culture, Buddhist culture. Thai people are beautiful, very open, and very sort of accommodating. And people come over here. The weather's nice, the food's nice. You know, things are a little bit cheaper, so everyone's generally in a good mood. You know, so it's very rare to see fans clash. Sometimes it's more the same fans that sort of have a
yeah,
bickering and disagreements, but most of the time it's fine. So you don't get that tribalism as much as you would in the UK, where
yeah,
you know fans might have a scrap or have an argument and things like that. So it's good. It's good, really. Certainly in Thailand. I can't say it for the other countries and territories. I'd imagine it's similar, but Thailand especially it's a happy place. And that sort of dilutes any sort of rivalries, really.
What I would say about that game, by the way, and I was at the game in the stadium, you wouldn't have been cheering long because 2 minutes later we were 2-1 down, weren't we? Latilas scored
Mm,
early, Latilas scored early, and they went up the other end, and we were 2-1 down after 6 minutes, weren't we? Some game that
yeah,
was, by the way, some
it was
it
game.
good.
was.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
Yeah,
was a good game.
I've got a couple of final questions. One is, let's say you mentioned travelers, you mentioned holiday makers, you mentioned people who are moving out there. If someone's just passing through and they're a Boro fan and
Mm,
they're you're in the backpacking and they're finding themselves and all that stuff, what would you suggest? How would they get involved? How would they find you? I'll put some notes in the show notes and stuff, but how would they find your
mm,
community group to watch a Boro game while they're in Thailand or Malaysia or wherever it might be on their travels? What do they do?
mm.
And the second thing, I'll come back to the final question after that. How do they get involved, Tommy, if they want to watch the Boro while they're passing through Southeast Asia, particularly?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, if they want to connect with us, we can obviously help. Certainly for Thailand, the Facebook group would be the best place to start. I mean, you know, that's Thailand Middlesbrough Supporters Club. It's very easy to find. We try to help people all over Thailand. It's not just Bangkok in the capital.
Hmm.
We've had other parts of Thailand where seaside towns and rural country towns where we've managed to get the game on, and we've listed them on the website to as a directory for Borough fans to, you know, to check out, and if they're ever in the area. So they can join the Facebook group, and obviously, you know, they can post in there, say, "Hey, I'm traveling through. I'd love to watch the Borough game. Where is it on?" You know, the website, we launched the website recently for Asia, the Asia group, and that gives us, it gives everyone a bit of information about where they can watch the games, so the names of the pubs and things like that. Not just Thailand, but in Hong Kong, in where else are we at? Hong Kong, Thailand. We've got Vietnam in there, Singapore, Dubai. These are all pubs that have either got a regular contingent of Middlesbrough fans watching the games, or they are open upon request to put a championship game, put Middlesbrough on, you know. So the Asia MFC supportersclub.com is the website, and the Thailand Facebook group would also be a good place to start if they're coming to Thailand. But all the information's on the website, AsiaMFCsupporters.com, so they can start there. Yeah, my name's Tommy Walker, so they can always reach out to me as well, and always open to meeting fellow football fans, Middlesbrough fans especially.
Excellent. I was in a bar. I was working in Newbury in Berkshire for that Sheffield Wednesday game. I normally go to that because I'll go to most away games, and I live in York, so it's a pretty local game. I couldn't get to the game, so I rang a sports bar. It was the same night as Champions League was on. I was thinking, well, there's Champions League on and there's Championship. What's the
Mm,
chances? And they had like 5 screens. And he said, yeah, he said, I'll book you a table. And there was 3 or 4 of us. I mean, the others didn't support Borough, but they were just in our group for work. And he said, yeah, I'll book you a table. And we just had the match on. Next to us was the Liverpool game. Another one was showing Chelsea. I think if you ask nicely, there's plenty of facilities. They'll find the championship game for you, won't they? I mean, don't get me wrong. The bar wasn't crowded with people coming in to watch Sheffield Wednesday versus Borough. You know, there was a few people in there watching, you know, Liverpool and Chelsea more than that. But it's just about finding places. I love that directory though. I love that information service that you provide because it feels like you're providing something that people want and would value and that kind of thing. So my final question is, what's next then? Where's it going? You know, you mentioned you're a busy guy. You might have bitten off more than you can chew.
Yeah.
I suspect in life you feel like one of those guys who does that, Tommy, which is great. But what's kind of next? You know, what's the ambition for this kind of, and what, you know, because if that ambition's real, I'd love other followers from other clubs to listen to this podcast and go, well, I could do that for my club in my area, whether area is Australia, Chile, you know, East Coast America, whatever. The principle's the same. What's next for you, Tommy, do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still asking that myself, to be honest. I mean, right now it's more just about maintaining the groups that we have and growing them, and sort of reactivating one or two that might have been quiet recently but have been established for a long time. Just garnering that sort of that those groups together and getting them a bit more active, and also it will really depend as well on what the club expect, because of course we are listed as one of their supporters groups, and really what they might ask things of us as well. So it will depend on that. I think right now, like you said, it's a maybe setting it up and getting everyone together has been a little bit more hard work than I expected. So maybe it might be a little bit easier managing it. But yeah, I would love more Asia-based fan groups to get involved, and us all work together. Um, grow the community, find new Borough fans, create new ones. There could be things like events in the future where we could do, or, football tournaments, things like that, that could be sponsored by the club. I don't know. It just, it's a project, essentially, an initiative that I enjoy, and it could go into other avenues. We could, in terms of the membership style, there might be different tiers of members. There could be community members. There could be members who want to contribute a bit more, so they, so that sort of thing. So yeah, I guess right now it's just more about taking it forward, getting more groups involved, getting people in on it, and seeing where we go. Middlesbrough's second in the league at the moment, and everyone's having a good start to the season. So hopefully we'll get to the Premier League, and then who knows? We were a Premier League club then, and and a Premier League club with an Asia supporters group. It's pretty good standing, because the exposure then goes up. There's a lot of clubs, a lot of fans over in this part of the world who watch the Premier League every week. And if you've got Middlesbrough on to a wider audience, not just our sort of
Yeah,
segregated groups that we
yeah,
organise, who knows? There might be more people coming in, and then yeah, it's a difficult one, but I'm enjoying it. Everyone else is as well. All the other founders and leaders who are involved. Um, it's exciting. It's a hobby. It's a thing to do on the side, and long may it continue. And it's like I said, it's open for all Borough fans to come and get involved and work with us.
I think you hit the
Brilliant.
nail on the head, Tommy, there, to be honest. The fact, enjoy the process, and it is a hobby. And I think if you enjoy what you do and you're passionate, you've got to enjoy the process. It's a bit like me and Nick doing this pod. We've started it recently, but we're enjoying it. And I think sometimes you just can't
Yeah.
have fun with where it might go. And I think,
Mm.
that's part of how you get better as well, because you're just enjoying it and enjoy the momentum and see what other strands come into it and see how it grows and how it rolls on. I think that's, like you were saying, maybe you're bitten off too much, but I think once you get into it, you just keep rolling with it, don't you? Because you've kind of got to, but you also enjoy it because it's a passion.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And we've got some other things maybe in the pipeline. We're thinking about doing a small fanzine blog, some quirks and stories about Asia, being a Borough fan in Asia, maybe some first person stories that we might throw in. We're thinking about maybe doing a short podcast, might not be as regular as this one, but like certainly just to profile the Borough
Yeah,
fans in Singapore, Malaysia, and who they are and how they did it. And I think that would be great for, I mean, I know about them, but not everyone does. Do you know what I mean? So little things like that we could do. We could get sponsors, we could get donators. We don't know. Right now, it's the process, the fun
yeah,
of doing something, home away from home. And again, like Nick said, if it's a directory of information that helps people, I mean, that's satisfactory enough to me, as well. And hopefully the club appreciates what we're doing and we work together with them moving forward.
yeah. Absolutely, that's great. I mean, we just got a slight insight of what's in your head, then, mate. You're just rolling out even more stuff that's going to get you and make you
Yeah.
even busier. But that's how these things roll, isn't it? So I
Well,
wish you the
good.
best of luck. I think what you're doing is fantastic, mate. I really applaud it.
I would applaud that as well. One thing I would say to you, we talk about ambition for what we want to do is, as a result of what you said earlier, there's 10,000 people in China that me and Dom want to get access to, so I'll be talking to you about that separately. that'd be great for our podcast exposure on a social media platform we haven't got access to. But you know what? Ambition's one thing and delivery's another. But listen, I'm going to go to the outro slides for those who watch on YouTube. Tommy, you have been a fantastic guest, really insightful, really interesting and inspiring. And I think hopefully you've inspired people, Boro fans to get involved, Boro fans to think about, we're a bigger club than we are just a, small club in Europe based in Teesside. We're an international, got an international following. Okay, it might not be on the same scale as your Man Uniteds and your Chelseas, your Liverpools, etc. But so what? That doesn't make us any less of a proper club at all. It makes us a proper club with a proper following. It's down to people like you. You've been sensational, inspirational. I'm just going to do the outro slides just so that people can know kind of what's next. Thank you as ever for your support. And we're going to talk next time on episode 23, which, God, I mean, that's really a long way into the future, Dom. Episode 23, I don't know, I've done that, by the way. I've done this last week as well. I can't seem to get the bloody share right on that. Anyway, never mind. Episode 23, we're going to be covering something really different as well. On episode 23, we're going to be covering the athletic club model in Spain, because Dom and I are sort of fascinated by how they work as a regional club, only using players born within a certain distance of the club as a model. Would it work? Could it work? Might it work for your club? What would be the implications if you tried it? Good look at history around that. It's a very different subject, but quite an interesting subject for us to get our teeth into. There's one continually successful La Liga club has got a model that nobody else has followed, and somebody in Canada's trying it. We're going to explore all that on episode 23. But it's been episode 22 today. Tommy, you have been sensational. Thanks again, co-hosting, Dom. We'll see you on the next episode very soon. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tommy. Really appreciate it. And we'll put all the links to all your pages on our LinkedIn group and on the YouTube channels, and make sure everyone can connect where they want to. Thanks, mate. Really appreciate coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers.